Tyler was walking across that graduation stage like a damn movie character, tall, composed, giving that half grin he always pulls when he's nervous, but pretending not to be. I stood there with my heart swelling, fighting back the sting in my eyes. 18 years. How the hell had 18 years passed so fast? I blinked and the baby in the backseat was suddenly in a cap and gown, waving to his classmates like he owned the place. People clapped, cheered. Someone even blew a cheap plastic horn behind us. And then, right when I was leaning toward Daniel to say something about how proud I was, my mother leaned in first, right up to my ear, and said it. Just loud enough to sound like a joke, just soft enough to make sure I knew it wasn't one. He looks nothing like you. I laughed. Sort of. That weird, dry laugh you do when you're pretending something didn't land. But it did. Oh, it landed. I turned toward her, my mom, Linda, always sharp-tongued and just a little too observant for her own good, and tried to give her a look like, "What the hell, Mom?" But she was already sipping from her water bottle like she hadn't just set a grenade on my lap. A silent smirk playing on her lips like she'd won something. I looked at Daniel next. He didn't look at me. He just stared straight ahead, arms crossed, mouth a straight line. Didn't say a word. Not even a grunt. Not even a chuckle to diffuse the moment. I waited for him to defend me, say something like, "He's got her nose," or "He's always had Melissa's laugh." Anything. But nope. Nothing. He just kept his mouth shut like he was afraid of what would come out if he opened it. That silence? That silence was louder than the entire auditorium. It crawled under my skin and stayed there. After the ceremony, we took photos. You know the kind. Too many, too staged. Everybody pretending like the world hadn't just shifted under someone's feet. I stood there with Tyler in the middle, my arm around him, my other hand on Daniel's back. My mom snapped the picture on her phone and smiled like everything was peachy. But I wasn't in the picture. I was watching it happen from the inside, and every time I blinked, my mom's words echoed. "He looks nothing like you." Over and over. Like a drunk mantra. That night, back home, I couldn't sleep. Daniel was out cold beside me, snoring lightly like he had nothing heavy in his chest. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting the fan blades like they were going to whisper answers. I thought about that photo. Not the one from graduation, the one from the hospital. The day we brought Tyler home. I hadn't looked at it in years. Felt too nostalgic. But now? I had to see it. I climbed out of bed as quietly as I could and tiptoed into the hall closet, dug through 2 bins of old frames and school art projects until I found it, the baby photo. Tyler swaddled in blue, little hat with his name, Daniel holding him, me looking exhausted but happy. Or maybe just exhausted. I stared at it in the kitchen under the weak light, my thumb brushing the edge of the frame. And then I noticed it. The bracelet. The little hospital ID bracelet that was on his ankle in the original picture, the one with his name, birth time, hospital number, it was gone. I squinted, turned the photo slightly, convinced it was just the glare. But no, it was definitely missing. Not cropped out. Not hidden. Just gone. Like it had never been there. And I know it sounds stupid. People move bracelets. They come off. Things get replaced. But I remember that bracelet. I remember clutching it on that first night home like it was the only thing anchoring me to this new world of motherhood. So where the hell did it go? I stood there in the kitchen, barefoot, holding that photo like it was a piece of evidence. My hands were shaking and I didn't even notice until I heard the soft sound of Tyler's door opening. He walked out in his boxers, rubbing his eyes, looking like a damn stranger for half a second. My breath caught in my throat. "Mom? You good?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "Yeah," I lied. Just couldn't sleep. He shrugged and shuffled toward the bathroom. I watched him go, my stomach tightening. Not because of what my mom said. Not because of Daniel's silence. But because for the first time in my life, I looked at my own son and thought, what if? I didn't finish that sentence. I couldn't. But I felt it, crawling up my spine like ice water. And that was when I knew I wouldn't be sleeping anytime soon. I placed the baby photo on the counter and took a long, deep breath. Something wasn't right. And whatever it was, it started a long time ago. I just hadn't seen it. Not until someone had the balls to say it out loud. The next morning, the kitchen felt colder than usual, not in temperature, but in energy, like the walls themselves were waiting to see what I'd do next. The coffee machine was gurgling, sputtering its way through the brew cycle while I stared out the window at absolutely nothing, trying to act like I hadn't just spent the last 6 hours doubting the biology of my own child. I told myself over and over again that I was being ridiculous, that this was just my mom doing what she's always done, planting seeds of doubt, and then standing back to watch the storm roll in. But it wasn't just her words anymore. It was the silence. Daniel's silence. And that missing bracelet in the photo, the one I swore used to be there. The one I remembered touching with my own fingers, tracing the little letters of his name in the soft, sterile light of the hospital room. That afternoon, while Daniel was out running errands and Tyler was still sleeping off his post-grad party hangover, I did something I never thought I'd do. I pulled up the browser on my phone, typed in at-home DNA test mother-son, and clicked the first result. It was all too easy. A few clicks, a credit card number, and boom, confirmation of my worst fear would soon be en route in a discreet little box. I justified it to myself, told myself it was only to shut my mom up once and for all. She'd made cracks before about how Tyler had Daniel's chin and nothing else, or how he was too quiet to come from my side of the family. But this time felt different. Something about the way she said it. And the way Daniel just sat there, pretending to watch Tyler walk that stage like it was someone else's kid. The test kit arrived 2 days later in a plain white envelope like it was nothing more than a coupon flyer. I almost laughed when I pulled it out, holding it in my hand like it was a bomb with the pin already halfway out. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited until Tyler was on his way to grab coffee with some friends, and as he passed me in the hallway, I said, "Hey Han, real quick, I need a favor. It's for some medical family history thing. Just a quick saliva sample." He barely even blinked, just shrugged, popped the cap off the vial, and handed it back like I'd asked him to hold a grocery bag. He didn't even ask questions. That part almost made me cry. I mailed it that afternoon, heart pounding, hands shaking like I was committing a crime. 2 days after that, the results hit my inbox. I didn't even get a chance to read them privately. My email auto-forwarded the notification to our shared family group chat because I'd used the same Gmail tied to our cloud. A rookie mistake. The message popped up right between a forwarded meme from Jenna and a calendar reminder about Daniel's dentist appointment. The subject line said, "Results are ready for Melissa and Tyler." I froze. I didn't click it. I waited. Then silence. No replies. No questions. Not even a goddamn thumbs up emoji. Nothing from Daniel. Nothing from Tyler. Not even my mom, who had the audacity to spark all this in the first place. It was like someone had flipped a switch and the whole group chat went dead. For people who normally couldn't shut up about weather or gas prices, that silence hit like a freight train. I finally opened the results myself, heart in my throat, pulse pounding in my ears. It said 99.9% match to the mother. I exhaled. Relief washed over me like warm water. I almost laughed. I swear to God. I even said out loud, "See? See, Linda? Suck on that." But then I looked again, closer this time. The test I'd ordered, it was only for me and Tyler. There was no information on Daniel. No paternity result. And right below our confirmed maternal match, something caught my eye. A list of possible relatives. One name stood out like a flashing neon sign in a dark alley. Eli M. suggested, first-degree relative. I stared at that screen like it was written in another language. Eli? Daniel's best friend since college? The guy who practically lived in our guest room for a summer while his divorce was getting finalized? That Eli? I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe it was a glitch. A weird algorithm hiccup. Maybe a coincidence. Maybe Eli had done a test and the system was just flagging proximity. But first-degree relative? That wasn't a glitch. That was blood. That was shared DNA. That was real. I sat down at the kitchen table, heart hammering against my ribs. My head was buzzing, my palms slick with sweat. All I could think about was the night after Daniel and I had that blowout fight almost 19 years ago, the night he left the house and didn't come back until morning. The night Eli came over to check on me. Just the two of us. A bottle of wine. Tears. Hands brushing. A kiss I swore never to think about again. One night. One mistake. Oh my God. I checked the date of the test. Checked Tyler's birthday. Counted backward. I counted wrong the first time, which made me panic even more. I even said out loud, wait, 99.9 means 1 out of every 2 isn't yours, right? Like an absolute idiot before realizing the math made no sense at all. But the real math? The actual timeline? It lined up a little too well. I closed the laptop. Just shut it like slamming a coffin. I didn't sleep that night again. I didn't eat. I didn't tell Daniel. I just walked around the house like a ghost, thinking about Eli's name on that screen and wondering if I'd been living a lie so big it swallowed 18 years of motherhood whole. And still, not a single message in the group chat. Not even from Tyler. Which scared me more than anything else. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even let my voice rise above the soft hum of the dishwasher when I said it out loud. The question had been building behind my ribs for hours, ever since I stared at the words first-degree relative, Eli M., on that DNA screen like it was a cruel joke from a bad soap opera. But this wasn't television. This was my kitchen. My family. My son. Daniel was standing by the counter, peeling the label off a beer bottle like it had personally offended him, and I just said it, flat, controlled, like I was asking about the weather. Is there any reason Eli's name is on Tyler's DNA tree? He didn't answer. Didn't even blink. He froze, label halfway off, fingers clenched, breathing shallow. For a second I thought maybe he didn't hear me. Maybe I hadn't said it out loud, but then he placed the beer on the counter, real slow, and walked out of the room. Not a word. Not a glance. Just walked out of the kitchen, down the hallway, and out the front door like I was someone selling insurance, and he'd decided he didn't want a policy. I didn't follow him. I didn't need to. His silence was louder than anything he could have said. I stood there alone, staring at that beer sweating on the counter, and for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to feel hollow. Like I was made of drywall and old nails, something thrown together to look like a home, but never meant to survive a storm. That night, I didn't sleep again. My body was tired, but my mind was dragging me through every year of my marriage like it was rewinding a crime scene. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Was it possible? Could I have not known? Could I really have gone almost 2 decades without realizing the man I married might not be the only one with blood in my son? The next morning, Jenna texted. She was my best friend from college, loud, brutally honest, the kind of woman who could sniff out bullshit from a zip code away. She must have picked up on the weird energy in the group chat. Her message was simple. Hey, weird question. Is everything okay with you and Daniel? You've been quiet. I didn't answer at first. I just stared at the screen until my thumb hovered over the call button. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello. I just said, did Eli ever seem off to you? Around Tyler. There was a pause, one of those loaded silences that says more than any answer. Then she sighed and said, you're not gonna want to hear this. 10 minutes later, she sent me a photo I'd forgotten existed. It was from a barbecue at our place, one of those midsummer parties we used to throw before the mortgage and the adulting and the disappointments made everything feel like a damn chore. Tyler must have been 5, still baby-faced and wild-haired. In the photo, he was sitting in Eli's lap, a juice box in one hand and a hot dog in the other, laughing at something Eli was saying. But it wasn't the kid that caught my eye. It was Eli. The way he was looking at Tyler. It wasn't the look of a friend. It wasn't casual affection. It was something deeper. A kind of aching, wide-eyed wonder. Like someone watching something they love from a distance they can never cross. I zoomed in on Eli's face until my phone screen was full of nothing but his expression, and my gut clenched in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. That wasn't just a family friend. That was a man who knew something. Who was holding on to something. A secret. Maybe a truth he thought would never see daylight. The spiral came fast after that. I went into the attic, pulled down the old shoebox where we kept calendars, letters, notes from the early years. I needed to see it for myself. I flipped through pages until I found the calendar from the year before Tyler was born. I traced the days with my finger, trying to remember what life had felt like back then. It all came back in pieces. The fight. The 3-day silence. Daniel packing a bag and leaving to clear his head at his brother's lake house. Me alone, pissed, crying into a bottle of cheap Pinot Grigio on the back porch while the rain hit the tin awning like bullets. And Eli. Eli had shown up that night. He'd come over to check on me. Said Daniel had called him, worried I'd be upset. We ended up talking for hours. I remember that part clear as crystal, his hand brushing mine when I passed him the wine. The long pause when our eyes met and neither of us looked away. The kiss. The stumble into the living room. I told myself I'd imagined the rest. That it was just wine and grief and loneliness. That nothing happened. I told myself that for years. Now, I couldn't tell myself that anymore. I opened my email and typed Eli's name into the search bar, hands shaking like I was about to defuse a bomb. There it was. An email dated exactly 1 week before Tyler's birth. I'd never seen it, never opened it. It must have gotten buried under baby prep and chaos. But it was there. Subject line, I think we need to talk. I clicked it open, and the screen loaded slowly, like it knew something I didn't. The message was short. Just 2 lines. I know this is the wrong time, but I think there's a chance the baby's mine. That was it. No follow-up. No confession. Just a maybe. A what if. And then 18 years of silence. I closed the laptop, heart pounding, blood roaring in my ears. I wasn't ready to call Eli. Not yet. Not until I was sure of what I wanted to say. But I knew one thing now with absolute certainty. There wasn't just one lie buried in this family. There were layers. Stacked high. Hidden deep. And I was about to start digging. There's something about rage when it settles into silence that makes it more dangerous than when it roars. I didn't break plates. I didn't tear through drawers or scream into pillows. I didn't drive to Eli's house in the middle of the night and demand answers like a woman unhinged. No, I did what women like me do when the world tries to make a fool of them. I got still, I got quiet, and I started planning something that would make them remember the day they underestimated me. I printed the DNA results. Black and white. Plain text. Clean margins. No emotion in the words, just cold facts stamped with percentages and genetic connections that couldn't be argued. 99.9% maternal match. And right beneath it, the app-generated connection, possible paternal relative, Eli M. I enlarged it, printed it on heavy cardstock, and slid it into a polished silver frame we'd gotten as a wedding gift nearly 20 years ago, the one I'd always meant to use for a family portrait but never did. Funny how that worked out. Then I wrapped it. I used actual wrapping paper, bright blue with tiny silver stars, like it was a baby shower gift or a birthday present. Which, in a way, I guess it was. I tied it with ribbon and placed it in a gift bag. I didn't even need to write a card. The message was going to be clear enough. The next day was the graduation barbecue. Friends, family, neighbors, balloons on the mailbox, burgers on the grill, kids running through sprinklers, and the illusion of normalcy hanging in the air like cheap perfume. Tyler was lounging under the patio umbrella with his friends. My mother was already sipping her 3rd iced Chardonnay like it was water. Daniel stood by the grill, tongs in hand, avoiding my gaze like he was playing a long, quiet game of chicken with the truth. And then there was Eli. He showed up late, as usual. Big grin, sunglasses, arms wide like nothing was fractured, like our lives weren't sitting on a tectonic fault line of secrets. He handed Tyler a gift bag with a brand new camera inside, expensive, top shelf, too much for a kid who never asked for anything. Tyler thanked him, polite as always, and Eli tousled his hair like he was 5 again. I waited until everyone had eaten, until the paper plates were piled on the patio table and the kids were off comparing who got more cash in their graduation cards. I cleared my throat real soft, like a teacher calling for attention. Heads turned. Conversations paused. I reached into my bag, pulled out the framed results, and handed it directly to Eli in front of everyone. "You left something important out of your gift," I said. He laughed, confused, peeling the wrapping like he was expecting a gag gift. But then he saw the paper. The logo from the DNA company. The text. His name. And I swear to God, it was like watching a man get electrocuted. He froze, mouth partway open, the color draining from his face like someone hit a switch. The paper trembled in his hands, just slightly, like he was trying to hold still and failing miserably. No one spoke. Not Daniel. Not Tyler. Not my mother. For the first time in what felt like years, they were all perfectly, painfully silent. I turned to Tyler, my voice steady, louder than I'd meant. "This man? He might be your biological father, but he's not your dad. And I'm still your mother, no matter what any paper says." My mother let out a short, smug little huff and said, "I told you so," like this was some damn game she'd won, and I was just the last one to figure out the rules. Daniel set down the tongs, slow and deliberate, like he'd just remembered he was part of the story again. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Eli. He just turned and walked back inside. 10 minutes later, I heard drawers opening. Then the zipper on a suitcase. So I guess silence runs in the family. But Tyler just stared at the frame in Eli's hands. His face didn't change. No shock. No panic. Just a long, heavy stare like someone reading the end of a book they already knew by heart. And then he said it. Calm. Clear. Almost bored. I already knew. The words landed with more weight than anything I'd done. Everyone froze again, like someone had hit pause on the whole damn backyard. Even Eli looked stunned. "You what?" I said, even though I'd heard him perfectly. Tyler looked at me, finally, eyes steady. "I found the email. A few months ago. The one Eli sent you before I was born. It was in the old inbox folder. I was looking for baby pictures. Yes, I found more than I bargained for." I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as ash. "You never said anything," I whispered, like that somehow mattered now. "I didn't think it would change anything," he said. I figured if no one else was going to talk about it, maybe it didn't matter. I didn't know whether to scream or fall to my knees. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, or the fact that he knew before I did. The worst part was realizing my son had been carrying this weight in silence, the same way I had for months. Maybe longer. And still, Eli just stood there, holding the frame like it might explode. I looked at him one last time and said, "You want to be a father? Then go be one. But don't ever think you get to rewrite the story just because biology finally caught up." Then I turned away. And this time, I was the one who walked out. I didn't look back, because I knew what came next would be worse than the truth. It would be the consequences. There's a special kind of silence that doesn't bring peace, only pressure, the kind that fills a room not because there's nothing left to say, but because everyone's afraid of what might get said next. And in that backyard, after Tyler dropped those 4 words, I already knew. It was like the air collapsed in on itself. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. I couldn't even hear the birds anymore, just the thudding in my chest and the ringing in my ears, like someone had set off a fire alarm in the middle of a church. The next 20 minutes blurred past in the way trauma often does, half-heard voices, doors shutting, someone offering to help clean up, Jenna giving me a look like she wanted to speak, but knew better. Daniel never came back outside. Eli disappeared sometime between me turning away and the paper plates hitting the trash can. Tyler stayed until the last guest left, then went upstairs without saying a word. That night, the house was quiet. Not the good kind. Not the cozy, peaceful kind that wraps around you after a long day. No, this was the kind of quiet that settles over a battlefield after both sides have bled each other dry. The next morning, I sat alone in the living room, the DNA results still framed, still sitting on the end table like a decoration from hell. I couldn't look at it anymore, but I couldn't throw it away either. It felt like destroying evidence, like pretending the last 48 hours hadn't happened. Tyler came down around noon, still in the same t-shirt from the night before, face unreadable. He poured a bowl of cereal, sat across from me, and started eating like we were just two people passing time in a waiting room. I watched him for a while before finally asking, "How long have you known?" He didn't stop chewing, didn't blink, just said, "About a year." That hit harder than I expected, like getting slapped with a cold towel. "A year?" I asked, voice cracking just a little. "Found a letter in the attic," he said, matter of fact. From Eli. Dated like a week before I was born. My mouth was suddenly dry. I wanted to ask why he hadn't said anything, why he'd carried that alone, why I was the last damn person in this family to know the truth. But instead, I asked the one thing that had been burning through me like acid. "Did you tell your dad?" He nodded. "A few weeks ago. We talked." I sat there, stunned, the weight of it settling into my chest like wet cement. Daniel knew. Tyler knew. Eli knew. Even my mother, in her cruel, gut-punching way, had known. And me? I was the only one living in this fake little snow globe, shaking it around pretending everything inside was perfectly still. "What did he say?" I asked, my voice quieter now. Tyler paused, then shrugged. He said it didn't matter. That family isn't about blood. That I'm his son, no matter what. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that framed paper through a window. Not because Daniel wasn't right, maybe he was, but because they decided that together, without me. Like I was just a bystander to my own damn life. Like my role in all this could be skipped over because they had already handled it. So I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I got up, grabbed the frame, and walked out. I sat in my car for 10 straight minutes before turning the key. The DNA results were on the passenger seat, angled toward me like they were judging every breath I took. My hands were shaking, not from rage, not even from grief, but from something deeper, something worse, the sense that I didn't know who I was in this story anymore. I drove, not fast, not erratic, just steady. I pulled up to Eli's house, parked across the street, and stared at the place for a few long minutes. It looked the same as always. Tidy yard. Blue trim. Porch light still hanging crooked from that storm last fall. When he opened the door, his face changed immediately, that guilt-soaked panic look he always got when he knew he'd been caught in something. But I didn't give him a chance to say anything. "You had 18 years, I said, stepping past him into the hallway. "Now I want 5 minutes. You tell me everything. No more silence. No more, we thought it was best. No more keeping me in the dark about my own life." He followed me in, closing the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a verdict being handed down. We stood in his living room, me clutching that silver frame, him looking like a man who knew every word he was about to say would cost him. "I tried to tell you," he started, weakly. "No, you didn't," I snapped. "You sent one email and disappeared for 18 years. I thought Daniel would be a better father," he said. "You two were still together. I didn't want to ruin that. I didn't want to complicate Tyler's life." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "You think this is uncomplicated?" He rubbed his face with both hands like he wanted to rip his own skin off. Then he walked over to a small drawer under his coffee table, pulled it open, and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. He handed it to me slowly, like he was handing over a loaded gun. I unwrapped it. It was Tyler's hospital bracelet. The original one. His name, birth date, time of delivery, St. Joseph's maternity. All intact. I took it the day he was born, Eli said, voice barely audible. I told the nurse I was a family friend, and I asked for a keepsake. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted something to prove he was mine, even if I couldn't ever say it out loud. I held it in my hands, that tiny plastic band, and something cracked open in my brain. Because I remembered now. I remembered the bracelet wasn't on him when we left the hospital. And I remembered asking the nurse about it, and her saying something weird, that another visitor might have already picked it up. But we hadn't had any other visitors. Except Eli. I sat down hard on his couch, heart pounding, vision tunneling. And then I said it, the one thought I'd never let myself say before. So what if DNA says I'm his mother? What if I'm not? What if they switched the babies that night? He didn't answer. And the silence? It screamed louder than anything ever had. Cut to black.